everyone, welcome along to another image review session. This is the third one that I've done during July 2023, and again it's predominantly pictures from my recent Red Sea workshop. There's another 35 pictures here, although actually the first 4 are pictures from this year but from earlier trips that I've needed to process this week for some reason or the other. Actually, I've hardly spent any time at all processing pictures this week, so I'm not quite sure where this 35 pictures is built up from. But I was thinking I wasn't going to do one of these this week, but actually I've got lots. So here we go then. All the pictures are taken with Sony A1 camera in Nauticam housing, Retra flash guns, apart from the first 3 which are shot with my Nikon D850 in a Subal housing, but with Retra flash guns. So the 3 from Lembe with the SLR, but the rest are all mirrorless pictures. So let's dive on in. Just as a sort of general comment, as always, I'll have the EXIF open on the right hand side so you can see the settings. You don't see this for every picture. If I'm showing them full screen, you might not always see the EXIF. But hopefully most of these pictures will work their way onto my website fairly soon, so you'll be able to look at the EXIF again on there and see any of the settings that you might be interested in. As always, it's best to watch this on a big screen because there's no way you can read that EXIF information otherwise, and watch it at high resolution on YouTube. Don't play it back at low res, otherwise you've got no chance of seeing the EXIF. But that way you get to see the images and whether they're sharp or not. We'll find out when it loads up at 200%. There we go. So kicking off then into Lembe. So this first shot is an ocellated frogfish. This is an unusual species of frogfish. In fact, it's not got a proper Latin name yet. It's sort of commonly known from Lembe. This was the larger of the pair we had, and this is the larger, which I presume was the female. And they were quite shy frogfish, but they were very sight attached. So we'd see them every single time we went to I guess it was at Air Badger 3. We'd see these frogfish when we went there. This one, the male was brown, not as interesting and smaller, so I didn't shoot him as much as the female. But this is just a nice shot. She wasn't brilliantly posed, but I think the shallow depth of field here helps pull her out of the background. Another photo of my favourite matoti from the trip. This one lived in this old bamboo cane that was on the seabed, a big thick one, one of the big ones that they built the boats out of, and provided a great home for it inside. And I like this shot looking down inside the tube. Obviously that circular shape of the bamboo makes for a really graphic element in the picture, and then the octopus inside is an interesting story. And then a pair of the common black-banded damselfish that you see on the seabed on all the muck sites. They're a common sight. This is just a macro shot of a pair of them laying eggs inside. It's the male on the left and the female on the right here, and they were laying eggs inside this old bottle. So it's quite a nice little story. And I took a number of shots of these with males guarding eggs as well. But I like this shot with the 2 of them looking out of the bottle like that, and actually they were in the middle of laying eggs inside the bottle, which was pretty cool. Right, that's Lembe. Right, moving on to Iceland. This is a picture in Silfra. Another shot. I have lots of pictures from Silfra, and I haven't processed a great number of them, but I will slowly process out a few more and more over time. I have lots of pictures already of Silfra from previous trips. It's nice to have some new shots, and I have lots and lots of really nice shots, but they are kind of a little bit of a muchness, so I think I'll keep most of them under wraps, and then slowly over the next year or so, every now and again I'll process one and go, oh, look at this nice Silfra shot I've got, because I think that you get more enjoyment out of them that way myself, rather than processing 30 very similar pictures all in one go. They're kind of like, and here's another one. But if I process them every now and again, you'll see them popping up in these videos, I'm sure, over time. And this is a nice shot. I chose this particular frame. I like using this off-center, or this, rather than shooting symmetrical shots of Silfra. I like where you can get a nice big rock formation in the foreground on one side. We've got the diver in the other side to draw your eye through the picture. There's Byron posing there. And I've timed the shot to when he's just finished breathing out. So that I've got that sort of bubble plume just to pull your eye through to the diver in the background of the picture. And although this is shot on high ISO, you can see it's really nice and clean. There is some noise in it. I've not applied any noise reduction to these shots. It wasn't loading properly. I've not applied any noise reduction to these shots, but that's at 200%, and it's pretty damn good. I'm not going to get overly concerned. You can see the Fourth Element logo on Byron's hood there pretty clearly, so I'm pretty happy with that for someone who's right at the back of a wide-angle shot. Right, on to the Red Sea now, and these are all now, the rest of the pictures are all Red Sea shots. This is Unicorn Goby. My wife wanted me to process this one because of all the oxygen bubbles around its hole, and these oxygen bubbles obviously being produced by the algae during the day, and she thought that was really interesting to see all the oxygen bubbles on the seabed. And actually was an afternoon shot, so that's always when you get more of the oxygen with the photosynthesis having taken place all through the day. So she liked the oxygen bubbles, so that's why this one got processed. This is just a little while later that same day, a shot of a school of Red Sea Fusiliers swooping below the liverboards. The background's not the most amazing here, but I like the movement effect of this shot with the FCP with the 2860 at f14 a tenth of a second. So that tenth of a second is what's giving me the ability to do that blur with a good punch of strobe to pull them out. I've talked about the FCP in previous videos, so I won't dwell on it yet. This is still the prototype FCP. But yeah, I was happily shooting it throughout the trip on a variety of subjects. This one here is a male leopard blenny, usually quite a shy blenny. This one, actually, there was a pair of them and they were laying eggs inside the coral. And I took so many shots trying to get the pair of them together, and none of them worked really well. And I took the odd grab shot of a male on his own going, I don't really just want the male. And then that's the one I've ended up processing. Because the pair shots aren't really good enough, and this one's not really that great either. But having spent about 20 minutes with these guys, I thought I should at least process something from that mini shoot. So that's a nice male leopard blenny. They're beautiful fish, but they are shy and they're difficult to get nice photos of, except when you catch the odd one that's not feeling shy. Some crocodile fish on the Thistlegorm. There's actually 3 crocodile fish in this picture. And I've got a very similar picture, which I think is this one at the back on its own. You can see there's one there in the back. It's a bit blurred. It's just in the background of the EMWL shot. And then these 2 at the front. And I already processed previously, I think you can see it in the previous video, a shot of a single one. And I'm pretty sure that must be that one at the back there. And then I swam forward to these 2 afterwards and shot the pair of them. I've always presumed that the big ones are the females and the smaller ones are the males, but I don't know that. And I think this one was a female with a male in attendance. But what I was trying to do with these Thistlegorm shots is I wanted some shots of marine life on the wreck, and very characteristic marine life, and crocodile fish are really characteristic of dives on the Thistlegorm. But I obviously wanted the Thistlegorm wreckage to be part of the picture as well. And this part of the Thistlegorm you can almost always, this is where hold 4 begins to open up and break down into the blast area. Just behind the engine room, and this is where you always find crocodile fish. So it's they've been living there for all the years I've been diving the Thistlegorm. So it's a very characteristic shot and quite a good one for any future edition of our Thistlegorm book. And that's shot with the EMWL, the bug eye lens. Right, couple more Thistlegorm shots that I've processed in the last week. This one of the BSA M20 motorbikes. I just thought I'd try kind of a funkier angle on this one, really looking up at the bike. And I like the fact that I set my remote strobe to light the ceiling of the room above, and then with the strobe going off there, the broomtail wrasse had swum into picture as well, so I had a nice sort of background feature. It's not a brilliant photo, but I quite like it. It's a little bit different, and just nice to sort of have a variation, have a different shot of a different bike for a change. I do shoot this one occasionally, but it doesn't have a nice blue background behind it, so you always have to sort of do something with the remote strobe to get this subject to work. Right, some reef fish shots. This is just a lionfish out and about in the evening. The Red Sea lionfish are often very active at dusk. They tend to swim out and start hunting and things like that, and so you quite often get them swimming up in the blue and swimming towards the camera. I had the 90mm lens on, so I'd like to have had a wider lens on for these guys, but so this was the smallest one, probably a female with all the red colours on her. And yeah, so that was the easiest one to get into the picture, and obviously being a relatively young one still has nice antenna, and these ones even got nice eye spots on them, so that's pretty cool. Nice individual. It's very common that you see damselfish chasing bigger fish away from their territories on the reef. But it's very hard to get photos of it, and I always try and I always fail. And I was really happy on this particular trip to the Red Sea that I got 2 different shots of this. And this is a white-bellied damselfish chasing off a dusky parrotfish. And I think last week we had another white-bellied damselfish chasing off a rabbitfish. So I was quite happy to get these shots. It's not the most amazing shot. I quite like the little bit of movement blur because this is a very fast behaviour, and that's why I never get shots of it, even though I see it all the time. And so I was happy to get shots of it, and I think it's a praise to my camera's autofocus that I'm able to get those shots. A picture of a Red Sea Picasso triggerfish that had sort of just blown out some bits that it was eating, and it's got this cute pose with its mouth sort of open in this sort of like it's singing pose, which is pretty cool. I like this. They're a nice fish. The Red Sea Picasso triggerfish are quite easy to shoot, whereas Indo-Pacific Picasso triggerfish, which are more attractive but live very shallow, are much harder to shoot, and I've never really got a good shot of one of those, partly because the depth that you tend to find them in. They're very much a lagoonal species, but I really ought to spend half a dive sometime getting a nice shot of an Indo-Pacific one, because I have so many of the Red Sea ones, and I don't get the really attractive and interesting looking Picasso trigger from the Indo-Pacific. Some goatfish fighting. I have a tighter shot of these, which I'd already processed, which is just the 2 fish on blue. And then I felt that actually this shot was also worth processing because it kind of puts the behaviour into context of the environment. And it wasn't my intention really when shooting this to get the bits of reef in. I just saw the behaviour and shot it, and then tried to get closer and get it bigger in the frame. But actually going back through them, I felt that this first shot in the series, with the 2 goatfish, you can see zoomed in, I've got plenty of detail in it, with a little bit of the environment around it, was actually quite a nice variation to have on this subject matter. So I processed this one out. And this is another parrot triggerfish in the middle of eating an undulated triggerfish, or a yellow line triggerfish, busily munching away there. There's a really cool bokeh that's come through from this sea fan behind it. You see the textures and patterns in that sea fan behind. This is at Ras Mohammed, but the previous macro shots were up in Sharm el Sheikh. Right, another evening, and this time a sunset dive doing split levels. There's 3 shots of the same or similar scenes. This one of a pinnacle shot as a vertical. This was kind of the you always get a very nice sort of these rays coming off the sun when the sun hits the horizon. So this shot here was the shot I took just as the sun hit the horizon. This shot is slightly after the sun has hit the horizon, when you get a nice glow in the sky. And this one here I shot with the horizon through the middle of the picture to keep a nice flat horizon in the picture. I don't think the composition is amazing, but it's okay. And then this one here, it's probably a slightly more pleasing composition, but you've obviously got a bendy surface in this one. So that's why I processed 3 out. So there's one for those that like flat horizons, one vertical, but it's got a bendy horizon, and one horizontal with a bendy horizon. But I always enjoy doing the sunset splits. I don't do them that much on the workshops. I was often lending my dome port to other photographers on the other sunset split opportunities. But I try and do them at least once during the workshops in the Red Sea. Right, moving on to some Ras Mohammed shots. This is a wall-to-wall snapper picture. I think this one was taken with the WWL one, just snappers filling the whole frame, which is pretty cool. And this is also taken with the WWL one of the snappers streaming over the top of the reef. Just another nice shot of the snappers. Shot f/13. Shot at 1/400th of a second. I've talked quite a bit about liking the fact that my Sony A1 will synchronize up to 1/400th of a second, and that's an example of just what seems like a very standard wide-angle shot, but actually that ambient light was strong, and so I'm using 1/400th to control that ambient light while shooting at f/13 ISO 500. And this next one is a little roof scene here. Again, shot with a wide angle. I think these are both. No, that one. So that one is WWL, and that one is actually back to a standard fisheye lens. So with my Nikon fisheye on the Sony camera, the 815. Right. Another macro shot. This one of some cleaning behavior. I talked in the last video about watching these cleaner fish do this unusual behavior of not actually using their mouths to pick parasites or dead scales or things off the client fish, but all they were doing was rubbing themselves on the client fish, and the client fish seemed to really enjoy this. And this is another photo of that with this is a scissor-tail Sergeant Major with the 2 cleaner wrasses. As you can see, the one at the top is very much rubbing onto the fish. But I like this cleaning station because it was late in the day. Often late in the day, you tend to get big queues of fish sort of getting a last clean before sunset, and it's always a good time to shoot cleaning stations. And then this one was taken at where were we? At Beacon Rock at the end of Shab Mahmud. And that reef is characterised by lots of big Porites coral compared to sort of round the corner into Sinai, where you don't get as much Porites, dominated reef. And so you can see that Porites background in this shot. So it kind of takes me to that place. So it was a nice, rich coral background. I've shot with a relatively open aperture here, of f4, so a very open aperture. And it's that's giving me that separation from the coral. And I chose a composition where the subject matter was pretty much parallel to me, so that I kept it all in focus. Right, now to Shab al-Erg, hanging around waiting for dolphins. I think Shab al-Erg is a dolphin house reef near Hurghada, and you very often get bottlenose dolphins turning up there. And I think on this dive I'd found this nice table coral, I'd found this nice pair of masked butterfly fish, and I was kind of hoping some dolphins might swim along, but we didn't see any dolphins on this dive. But yeah, I think this was a shot waiting for dolphins as a background. This is back up at the barge and one of the different stonefish to the ones I'd shown in previous videos. This one had a really lovely red colour and was in a very inaccessible spot underneath the coral head. But I managed to shove the EMWL lens in there and get this angle on it, which is quite a cool angle. I think it really shows it sort of hidden away in amongst underneath the overhang. And there's a red-mouthed grouper at the back there, just kind of watching what was going on. Another photo of a lemon goby and a lemon coral goby, and this one I processed this one out, although it's not a great photo, because this one was guarding eggs, and you can see the eggs down here. You see them here with their eyes, and then there's more of them up through here, but these aren't in focus. So just kind of quite nice to get that nest shot of a lemon coral goby. It was very, very inaccessible nest right in the heart of the coral, as you can see, and it was very much one of those threading a needle type shots to get the angle to reveal all this. But with a bit of fiddling, it wasn't difficult to get in focus because the fish wasn't going anywhere or it was just trying to find the angle through the coral to try and get a shot where I could actually see it, which was the challenge of that one. This is another photo taken on that same dive site at Subal Island, and this is a type of squirrelfish that I've not had photos of before. In fact, I don't even remember what type of squirrelfish it is. I think it's that black spot I know at the back of its tail is really distinctive. And on the barge, they're really yellow in colour, but typically they're not a very yellow squirrelfish, and they just have these amazing colours on the barge, and so they're really nice, and you see them every time you go to the barge, and I'd never really taken a good photo of one. So I thought I'd grab some pictures, and I spent a few minutes shooting them full body with the tail in, and they just ended up too long and thin in the frame. So actually I preferred this shot where I went a bit closer, didn't try and get the whole fish in, but got the red and the yellow, which for me is what this fish is all about. The lovely red head, the red line on the dorsal fin. I love those red pelvic fins sticking down at the bottom. The big eye, obviously, being a squirrelfish. And then being a squirrelfish, you'll also have the spines on his operculum. You can see the operculum spine there on the gill cover. Right, some anemone fish. This pair shot. It was just a nice composition. I was shooting the one at the front, the one at the back. Swam into the frame, and I thought, oh, that's quite nice to have the two of them in the shot. And this is the same anemone and anemone fish, but this is shot on the same dive, but I attached the EMWL for this particular frame, so sort of got a macro wide angle of the same fish on the same dive. Right, back into the Thistlegorm now. I think I showed a different shot when I had these remote strobes set up. Last week a horizontal shot, and then this is a vertical shot of that same scene. I once you've set the remote strobes up, don't just take the one composition you were thinking of, see if there are any other angles you can shoot. So I shot this as a horizontal with 3 trucks in, and then I shot it as a vertical with 2 trucks in. So it was good to be able to work both those opportunities out of the same effort of putting the remote strobes up. And then after I'd done the trucks, I pulled one of the remote strobes across and stuck it behind the wheel of this Norton motorbike. And then fortunately got the Broomtail Ras coming into frame at the same time. So just not an amazing shot, but just nice to do an individual portrait of a motorbike with a fish in the frame, with a bit of remote strobe just to liven the shot up a bit. And these are all shot with the FCP as well. This shot you might think is FCP, but it's actually shot with the EMWL. And also it's shot on a long exposure, so the image quality leaves a little bit to be desired. But these lionfish were really actively hunting this school of glassfish, and it looked on the Thistlegorm, and it looked like it was going to be a great photographic opportunity, but it was just so awkward all the time. The glassfish were not really very keen on being hunted, so they were never really letting the lionfish get very close, and there was a bit of current, and it was quite deep. So it's an okay shot. It's maybe useful to me to have that shot in the future. It's quite kind of cool action, but it's not a very nice shot. I'm not quite sure why I processed it. This one here is one of the BSA M20 motorbikes. So this is on the upper level of the holds, and this is underneath the clapsed area. This is actually the rearmost bike underneath the Morris commercial vehicle is crushed underneath the clapsed area on the port side of the upper level of hold number 1. And there's sort of 4 motorbikes across, all of which are squashed, and then this one here is kind of just escaped being squashed because it's the one across the back of the truck. And I never really photographed this particular motorbike before. It's actually in quite good condition. You can see it's still got its seat on it. It's got a nice sort of mark on the side of the fuel tank here. There's probably some other cool bits of it because it's quite awkward to get to. It may well have some nice features on it, but it's a little bit more intact than some of the other motorbikes, so I thought it was nice to shoot it, and good to get some coverage of a different part of the ship. And I think the only reason I processed this one really was it has got a nice spray of soldier fish above it. And this is the bike we call Ellie's bike. This is the sort of the most photogenically positioned of the motorbikes on the Thistlegorm. It's shallow, easy to find, and got space all around it to shoot, and it's got a nice blue background. If you want the blue background in the shot, I didn't in this particular shot. I was shooting here beams of lights, with remote strobes behind it, and then just waited for something interesting to come into the frame. And this Abu Jubidi Ras came into the picture, and this gave me a chance just to have a sort of a hero fish focus for my shot. I quite like his position there, sort of almost riding the motorbike. I think last couple of pictures now. These are glassfish in the Dunraven wreck, and obviously I chose to process this one because they were making an interesting shape, maybe a little bit like an arrow or something. Sadly, there's not a lionfish or something at the top for them to be pointing at, but I like the arrow shape. I like the blue background, and it's just quite an interesting image of inside the Dunraven. I like glassfish with a bit of space around them as well, so they're not just filling the frame. There's some space too. A pair of white-bellied damselfish fighting each other. These were 2 males having a dispute over the edge of their breeding territories. And you can see he's giving him a good old kiss in the kisser there as he bashes across. And actually, it was quite an even-handed fight, and one would be beating one up, and then the other one would beat the other one up. It wasn't the easiest thing to photograph, because if I got too close, the fighting would stop, and if I backed away, they'd start fighting and chasing off in the other direction, and I wouldn't be able to get in position to get a shot. But I was happy to get the chance to shoot these. A pink-eye goby in the Red Sea. These were normally these always live around little acropora colonies, little hard coral colonies. And these ones were living on a rope sponge, which was very unusual. I've never seen pink-eye gobies, always, associate them living on coral. But these were living on a sponge, which was quite cool to see. And it gave me the chance to get this sort of very exposed position shot of it. So just a sort of a macro shot, but really nicely separated on the background. Just hovering there, easy to focus on, easy to shoot. And that brings us back to the beginning. So I'll just flick through a few as I finish, so you can read some settings if you were desperate for settings for something that I didn't pause and talk about. But I think, yeah, that's another nice little selection. I've probably got another 30 or 40 of what I would say this same standard or, priority processing Red Sea shots to go through. I don't think I'm going to get a chance to get those done before I go to Cayman, so it might be a few weeks until you see anything more from me. And obviously, when I come back from Cayman, I'll be excited to show you pictures from Cayman. So yeah, might not be too many of these for a couple of weeks, but hopefully you find them useful. So thank you for watching, and speak to you again soon.